Hello, everyone. Today I have the pleasure to interview our third guest for 2024, Daisy Papp, and I hope that I am pronouncing your last name correctly.
Yes.
Daisy is a coach, a writer, a speaker, and an educator. Daisy has an extensive background in psychology, other modalities from well-renowned psychologists, neuroscientists, and leaders in the coaching industry. Daisy has helped many individual couples, athletes, and world champions group, small businesses, and Forbes 500 company over the span of 4 continents. And her book have been sold over 50 countries. Daisy will share a little bit about her background in discussing the topic for today, which is the 5+2 formula in assessment tool, which I find that very interesting, by the way. Daisy will speak on how it applies for both youth and adults. And at the end of the podcast, she will share words of encouragement for the viewers. And to start off, my first question for you today is, can you share about your background and why did you become a life coach?
Okay, so first of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm really, really pleased that you invited me onto your show. I really appreciate that. Thank
You're
you.
so welcome.
So, I personally do not really like the expression life coach, because to me, coach always refers to a team or a football team, a soccer team, and I do not consider myself as such. And I understand I work in this industry. Nevertheless, you can go online and for $27, you can buy yourself a life coach certificate. That does not mean that you're competent. I can have many, many, let's say, degrees and may still not be competent. So what brought me into this field was my own fate. I'm an orphan. I lost my father and his parents in a car accident where I supposed to be in. And my mother was the only survivor. And my father said, last minute, Daisy, you stay at home. And all of a sudden, life was not the same again. And then later on, when I was 17, my mom, my brother, and my godfather and we wanted to fly out to Switzerland, Geneva, from Germany, where I'm originally from. And my mom says, last minute, Daisy, you know what, you stay at home. We were back in 2 days. And 5 minutes after takeoff, they crashed and died. And so I was by myself, and my grandmother, I had one grandmother left, my mother's mother, and she was old, and she was, of course, traumatized by losing her daughter and grandson, my brother in that case. And I became very sick. I became ill. My body didn't want to function. Back in the days, it was not very fashionable to connect the dots that psychosomatic was not really a daily topic yet. And years into that, I almost died, and I found a doctor who was able to help me. And interestingly, so she did something while she had all sort of sensors all over the body. And in the meantime, she spoke to me. And for the first time, I felt lighter. And I had no idea what she did back then. And she said, well, it was NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. And I said, that's what I will study. And that's what I did. And then I became a master in that modality, or in NLP, master practitioner. And then I realized, okay, so sometimes it functions very well when I work with people, and sometimes the results are still missing. So I continued searching, and I wanted everyone to experience that within an hour you can feel so much lighter, even after such a magnitude of trauma.
Wow, that's a remarkable story. And I did a very short training on NLP, and I found it very helpful as well. Was there anything that geared you towards this field? And you probably answered that. If so, what was your aha moment in which you decided that this is what you wanted to do?
Well, I don't think that it was a decision. I think it was decided for me by life, because I accumulated so many different modalities. And in 2008, I made my own recipe. It's called self-recoding, so that I'm recoding myself, or I give myself an update in my brain software. And I understand 2008, I was way ahead with that name, but I think it is very self-explanatory. And when something works and you are passionate about it, then people come and want to
Mm-hmm.
seek your help. And so it was not that I volunteered, okay, that's what I want to do, and then I'm planning on it. It
Mm-hmm.
just happened. I think life decided that for me, that with my story and my background, that somehow
Mm-hmm.
people feel that it's very authentic, and they can notice that I can relate to their pain when they come with any emotional or mind pain that they carry.
Very interesting. Can you give us an example of what is the decoding? Because that sounds so interesting. I know that it's not
Mm.
in the agenda, but I wanted to know a little bit more.
Sure, sure. Oh, I'm happy to answer all the questions I have. I don't have all the answers, but I'm happy to share with you the ones I
Thank
have.
you.
Well, self-recoding is a mixture. It's I that's the brand name. I trademarked
Mm-hmm.
it, so it's registered. And what it does, it helps you to acquire skills.
Mm-hmm.
You become familiar with tools, and then you learn the skills, how to utilize them on yourself.
Oh.
So that means that you can be independent from me.
Mm-hmm.
When I take on a new client, I don't want that for life. I want them to be independent as fast as
Mm-hmm.
possible. And there are some tapping modalities in there. There's some EMDR in there. That's the eye movement. There are
Mm-hmm.
some elements of deep meditative states where you can bring yourself into
I
how you
see.
can
Mm-hmm.
visualize. And it's very powerful, because what I wanted to do, I'm not a psychologist and I'm not a psychotherapist. Um, but what I wanted to do, I wanted the modalities that I've studied, I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
take out those elements that are the most powerful and most efficient and fast, and those
Uh-huh.
I mixed together, and that became self-recoding.
Very interesting. Was there any specific population that you were gearing towards working with, and why? And what is the most rewarding aspect of the work that you do? And I'm not going to say life coach.
Yes, you can say it. I understand it's in this trade, that's how it's called. I consider
Mhm.
myself an excellence coach. So I help people to reach excellence, or I'm a consultant. Well, when I thought who I will help, to me, it did not matter what
Mhm.
age, what geographics, what gender, what nationality, what culture, what faith group they belong to or choose to
Mhm.
participate in. To me, every human matters. I do believe in the one human family,
Mhm.
and I believe that we are all very valuable. Our
Mhm.
behaviors may not be very valuable at times,
Mhm.
but the value of every human is equal. Mm.
Yes,
And then we
definitely.
have,
Mhm.
yes, I appreciate that you agree on that. I
Mhm.
had that feeling that we have much in common when it comes to that. And so what happened then in 2020, a lady from Australia found me, and she wanted to do a podcast with me. And so ever since we do a podcast, so I produce that show. It's a weekly show for 4 years now. And she asked me that question. So who is our target audience?
Mhm.
Because we must know for marketing reasons, and is it women this age group, or is it the youngsters, or is it
Mhm.
male, or is it couples, or is it young mothers or mothers to be? And I said, I can't decide that. It is humans. I then discussed with my podcast partner, then let's embrace the globe. And that's exactly what happened,
Oh, wow.
because it's interesting that when we look at the statistics, we have every week a different statistic. Sometimes it's more men, sometimes it's more women. We have some weeks where we have like 80% male listeners, and then the week
Mhm.
after it's like the 25 to 30-year-old a female. So it's
Mhm.
very interesting. So to me, that question is not applicable, because I cannot pinpoint that down. My oldest
Mhm.
client is 83 years old, and my youngest is 14.
That's amazing. That's great. That's a good way to see it, because you want to be able to help everyone, not limited to
Yes.
just one population. Because there might be some modalities that you use that might help for certain population, and if you're restricting, they might not benefit from it. So now we're going to shift on the 5+2 formula in assessment tool. I found that very interesting. And I want to share some stats that I found, and to
Mhm.
see how we can relate that. In today's society, many youth struggle with many different issues like bullying, uncertainty, and many other issues. And in 2023, based on the White Pulse News Consumption and Trust Survey for North America, teens between the ages of 13 and 17 reported that technology overdependence and addiction was number one in top of their problems. And then number two was the lack of acceptance, the respect, and inflation was number three, and the cost of living, and number four, the climate change, and five, bullying, and number six was gun violence, which I thought would probably be more on the top of the tier, and number seven, mental health problems and crime and violence and insecurity, and number nine, substance abuse addiction, and number 10 was the lack of social skills.
Mhm.
There's also a new phenomenon that I found emerging, which is that is not included in this report, but is that of teen dating violence, which is something that is kind of fairly new, that is being, how you say, more in the open now. And this is according to the youth.gov, an estimated 1 to 10 teens will experience dating violence. With that being said, how does the 5+2 formula help the youth in becoming more self-aware and gain more insights on themselves to help them make better choices and prevent some of these problems that we mentioned in that list? And I know it's a lot, but I was trying to see something that I can connect it to and hopefully
Yeah.
connects.
Well, I very much appreciate your research that you did, because that's horrifying to hear these numbers. It's horrifying to hear the topics. So I'd like to start with the climate change number one. Why? Because that's outstanding. I remember when I grew up, my mom one day when I washed my hands, she said, no, you can't use that much water anymore. We're running out of water. Then a few years later, it was all about that. Oh, the trees are dying in Germany, but they're still forests and they're healthy. So then there came another. Then it was Chernobyl, the atom plant in Russia, back ex-Soviet Union, that had an accident. And then after that, we needed to be afraid of the war. And then we needed to be afraid of this. And then there came a virus. And then there's always something that the fear mongers are trying to plant into society. Because I know one thing for sure, based on my own experience being a human, when I am in fear, I have no access to the higher parts and pieces, areas in my brain where there's logic, where there's rational thinking, where there's critical thinking, and where there's compassion and the genie in the left frontal lobe. So when whoever we think of who that is, the fear-mongering doing or orchestrating the fear-mongering, we can just step out of that and say, I'm not participating now in the climate change fear-mongering. I'm going to observe it from a little more far apart. And then maybe the next time I'll be interested in participating again. So that is, I think, very important that we start thinking, and we start also listening to scientists who have very interesting thoughts on that, but don't have place in media, because we also want to remember that the media globally is owned by 5 companies. And I find that critical when we then think about it. Oh, what could that mean then? Now, the next thing is that role models are missing, I think. When we see that, let's say I grew up, I'm 2 years old now, and I see my mom all day long on the phone, and she's doing, yes, no, I cannot, and the voice message, and then children don't do what they're told to do. Children do what they see. So there's that saying, I'm not comparing humans to animals, but there's that saying where it says, monkey see, monkey do. And that applies to children. What children see, they will do. So in order to stop the addiction when it comes to the electronics and social media and what I heard you mention there, we must be a role model.
Yes.
Let's take a diet. For example, let's do how that's called, the fasting, So, okay, today I'm fasting for 8 hours, electronics, and let's do it, and let's connect again, because children, have a lack of understanding of themselves because they need the feedback. When there's no feedback coming that is positively reinforcing and encouraging, then they feel that they are not worthy. Now, then they will go into groups and peers where they will find some acknowledgement. And sometimes these aren't the groups that are violent or that do cruel things or stupid things at times. So it's all interconnected. So it's not that it's only about the youth, it is about all generations. And now circling back to the 5+2, what does the 5+2 do? Many years ago, in 2011 and 12, I developed the formula, the 5+2. And I realized, oh, this is universal. It applies to the old clients, to the young clients. It applies to the boys, to the girls, to the grandfathers and parents and single people and divorced and widowed people. And I realized, so many people want love. They want more love. They want to feel loved. They want to love. They want to have extraordinary love. But when you ask 100 people, and I asked several hundred people what their definition of love was, it's scary what answers I get. Most people don't know how to define love. We're all searching for something and we cannot define it. Now, the 5+2 starts out with the first book that I wrote about the 5+2 was for adults. It's 300 plus pages. It's very, very filled with essences, not an easy read. And then I realized, okay, so teenagers need that too. And then I came up with this one. This is how it looks like. This is
I like that.
Yeah, for teenagers navigating teen life, the formula for growth and building strong relationships. Now, why are relationships so important? And now I circle away from love.
Yes.
And I will circle back. Relationships. Everything is a relationship. My relationship with you, my relationship with food, my relationship with self, my relationship with parents, my relationship with teachers. Everything is a relationship. When I don't know how to measure if I can trust them, whomever they are, then it's very complicated to be myself, right? So in order for me to be free and authentic, showing freely who I am, I need an environment where I can do so. In order for me to feel safe in doing so, I need to know how I can trust. The 5+2 is very simple. Cared +2, cared. C standing for consideration, admiration, respect, empathy, dignity.
Wow.
Cared. We can remember that word, cared. And then comes the +2, having a word, meaning mean what you say what you mean. That also goes a little bit to the truthfulness. Of course, what is truth? That's a different question. It depends on the perspective, my truth, your truth, the truth, or do we speak about facts? Because there's a difference between truth and facts.
Yes.
And then the second one is following through in a timely manner. For example, when I say, you and I, we agreed, we meet today at this point in time, and you are here and I am here.
Yes.
So we followed through in a timely manner. Had I have a conflict in my calendar or in my schedule, or I had an emergency, I would have let you know, please, Claribel, can we reschedule? And that's the basics of integrity, the 5+2. Now, when someone behaves consistently based on the 5+2, they earn or gain something, and that is trust. Now, I turn it around. When teenagers start behaving based on the 5+2, they still can set boundaries. No, I don't want that. Can you respect that? I don't want that. They can start asking questions instead of being forced. Then they will also be able to educate the parents that, hey, there's another way of building trust that has an impact on the relationship of the parents to the child, from the child to the parents, and from the parents to their parents and other family members or society, community, people we interact with. Now, when parents understand the 5+2, it's not about the other. When I want you to be someone you cannot be, Claribel, then you will be feeling inadequate and I will feel frustrated. It's like when I had a dog and I would say, meow, finally, dog, meow. The dog will be frustrated because I'm frustrated, and our relationship is very saddening because we're both disappointed.
Mhm.
Disappointed. So we appointed something onto the dog. It should meow, and then we disappoint ourselves because the dog cannot meow.
Mhm.
So, and then I'd like to add another aspect to the farmers or gardeners. I've never seen a farmer or a gardener standing in front of a bush or something they planted or they grow, let's say a lemon tree,
Mhm.
that they stand there, you stupid tree, I wanted you to be grape. I've never, ever seen that.
Mhm.
The gardeners allow to grow what's already in there. Now, when we
Mhm.
as parents or educators, grandparents, or
Mhm.
people in the society interacting with children, then we allow them to be who they are and allow them to unfold what's in there. Now, then they will have a very different life experience. I wonder if you can see that.
That is beautiful. I really appreciate you explaining that, and it's so thorough. It makes a lot of sense. I would say this generation, many lack the empathy, or if not the empathy, the lack of integrity, or the lack of how you say self accountability. I've
Yes.
seen that as well. And that whole method, it's like teaching them those skills because they're probably not learning it. Maybe well, we cannot blame the parents because sometimes the parents may also be lacking those skills. So it's just like a cycle that's being passed on. But if the
Yes.
parents educate themselves on this is how I can understand my child better and not put expectation on that child that you need to be like this or you need to do this, but allowing them to flourish and grow to be, in terms of like, I will say an example would be like in education, like what path do they want to, take? Because I see, know from families that if the father was a lawyer, if the father, excuse me, if the father was a lawyer, they want the child to also be a lawyer, or the daughter to also go in the same path, and that's like putting expectation, and then that person is not unhappy with their life because they went through a different path that they're not. They didn't get to flourish and say, okay, I have this passion for music, I have this passion for art, or I have this passion for some other things. And that's a great concept that we need. I think we need it more than ever. So what do you recommend for youth who are struggling with making friends in school or they feel isolated? Because we see a lot of that as well.
Yeah. So I go back to the very beginning.
Mhm.
The very beginning is that mama, egg, daddy, sperm. When these two meet, yeah, here's the sperm and meets the egg.
Mhm.
There is scientifically proven a light, a spark visible.
Mhm.
It's possible to see it nowadays. You can,
Yes, I
don't
saw a
believe me,
video.
research. Exactly. Now, that means that there's a spark of light. Some call it the God spark or the
Mhm.
creator spark. Now, neither in the egg nor in nor the egg nor the sperm created life. Life source was
Mhm.
already in them. They just created the opportunity to unfold the potential that when they two meet, there's this God spark happening, or that spark of miracle. Now, when
Mhm.
children remember that they
Mhm.
are a miracle, because it's not true that the fastest sperm makes the race. No, no, it's the egg choosing
Mhm.
which one to let in. So, first of all, you're chosen and I'm chosen, and all children in this world are also chosen ones. Now, when we help children understand that
Mhm.
there are no mistakes in the universe, you may
Mhm.
believe in a God, you may not believe in God. That's irrelevant in this particular aspect when we look at you're a miracle and I'm a miracle.
Mhm.
Now, when children can connect with themselves and look in the mirror, okay, 5 + 2 is very simple,
Mhm.
and start behaving based on that 5 + 2. Now, when everyone around them will criticize them and say, you're stupid,
Mhm.
you're ugly, you're horrible, you're useless, you're a pain in the neck, whatever, they're horrible things that are
Mhm.
told to children that are so fragile. And I feel hurt by every single child being listening to these saddening and destructive words and sentences that children are sentenced with at times. And when they can look in the mirror, or when they don't have a mirror, they can look inside. I'm a miracle and I did the right thing. When children understand and can distinguish between doing the right thing and the wrong thing, then their self-value increases tremendously. And then let's say they are ignored or isolated. They are never alone when they have themselves.
Wow.
And now imagine when one of these children that knows that they are whole meets another child that is whole, what's then possible?
That's a really interesting explanation, because children should be able to have that feedback that you are chosen. You're not a mistake, you're chosen. It also builds up, their self-esteem as well.
Absolutely.
And once a child is secure, let's say, for instance, and like with this whole situation with bullying and things like that, the child will be able to set them boundaries and also be able to protect themselves, or be able to report on a timely manner what they're going through, because they have that, that self-esteem.
And they have something to measure. With the 5+2, you can measure, okay, is that human considerate? Is that human sharing admiration? Is that human respectful? Not only towards others, but towards themselves. Are they empathetic? Do they jeopardize my dignity or their own dignity? Do they say what they mean and mean what they say? Or are they just simply frustrated themselves and say stupid things to get it off their chest? And do they follow through in a timely manner? So are they accountable? I very much like that expression that you said. It's a very valuable expression, self-accountability. I very much like that. Thank you for bringing that in.
Oh, you're welcome. So based on the 5+2 formula, what would be recommended assessment for youth who are struggling with this issue, and how we can help them? And I think you probably explain it, but if not, if you can elaborate a little bit more.
Thank you. I appreciate. Well, kids, if you are in a school, whoever listens to this, or a parent who is concerned, or a teacher who is concerned, get in touch with me. I'm happy to do a speech. I'm happy to speak at your school. If it's far away, then we do it remotely with our technology nowadays. It's easy to solve. I speak with people from around the world over video conferencing. Get in touch with me. I'm happy to share with you two things. One is the 5+2. And there is one other step that stops bullying like that immediately. Island model. It's a metaphor, psychological metaphor. It's not my invention or intervention. It's from one of my teachers, and I further developed it over the past 13 years, where it's clear. It's like, it says, like, you live in your own island. Like, imagine you live in your own island, and in that island are all your experiences, everything that you've dreamt of, your shattered dreams, your hurts, your joys, everything is in there. Now, in my island is only a unique combination. No island is equal to another. They're not identical. And when I understand from my point of view, I have the right to see it the way I see it. And the other islander has the right to see it how they see it. Then their point of view shall not make me identify with it. Quincy Jones, great musician and composer, said it brilliantly, and I quote, "Not 1 ounce of my self-worth depends on your opinion of me."
Wow, that's powerful. I don't mean to cut you short, but we got 8 minutes and 30 seconds, and I want to go into the next questions. So I read in your website about the 5+2 formula that it can also help be creative and focus system that can also assist the couples and singles gain better insight on themselves. Can you explain how this formula works for couples, how they can use that assessment tool also that can benefit them as well? And let me do the last question. That way we can just put everything together. And why is it a good tool for the singles to use to help them improve their relationship skills before they go into a relationship?
Okay. I think I start with that and then we go into the couples.
Mm-hmm.
When I work with singles who are currently opening up for dating. And so they learned the 5+2.
Mm-hmm.
And now they go out there and they're so much freer in observing.
Mm-hmm.
It's not so much that am I good enough? It is they know that they are self-regulating their behavior
Mm-hmm.
based on the 5+2. They behave that way
Mm-hmm.
consistently and more consistently. And now they can lean back and say, actually, what I'm doing, I'm data collecting. I'm collecting data of my desired subject, the
Mm-hmm.
future partner, and I can just observe their behavior to see
Mm-hmm.
if I can trust them. When I can trust them, and then we can see, okay, what type of roof, I call the roof is the relationship. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's two humans who come together, everyone is a pillar who hold the roof
Yes.
together, and before they meet, let's talk about the roof, because some people want to have just a casual relation and some people want
Mm-hmm.
to get married for the rest of their life. Now, how does it help couples who are already in an existing
Mm-hmm.
relationship?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it is a self-assessment tool. How respectful am I? How empathetic am
Mm-hmm.
I? Do I share my admiration for my partner? Can I share my admiration for myself, for my own achievements? Because
Mm-hmm.
look, when I can respect me and you
Mm-hmm.
disrespect me because you have a bad day, I'm still not lacking respect because I respect me.
Yes.
So it gives both partners the full responsibility back to
Mm-hmm.
their own behavior. And it helps them oftentimes bridge to stop trying to make the lemon tree into a grape. Because
Yes.
how
To
often
change the
is it
person. Mm-hmm.
you can't? You
Mm-hmm.
can't. I mean, you can force them, and
Mm-hmm.
then the resentment bucket fills up, and then the
Yes.
relationship is no
Mm-hmm.
longer filled with joy and passion,
Mm-hmm.
but the resentment overshadows it all. So the 5+2 is
Mm-hmm.
very helpful to all relations, even in companies. I go into companies,
Mm-hmm.
corporations that call me for time management. I say, well, it's not about time management. It's about what's going on during the day within the body-mind connection. And when we build trust, then time management becomes much easier because we
Mm-hmm.
can focus on what's necessary to get done.
Wonderfully explained. Very important. You mentioned accountability again in that respect. Without those two things, it's like the person will never come clean as to what they're doing wrong or what they're lacking. Accountability is so important in that communication part that you mentioned. So before we close the podcast, because we're like running out of time, can you share a word of encouragement for all the youth and the viewers that will listen to this podcast, and also to the couples in those the ones in relationship as well?
Mm. Well, my message to all humanity, every single member of the one human family, is you are a miracle. Start cherishing your miracleness
Mhm.
and get yourself the 5+2 because it's so simple.
Mhm.
It's, I mean, the teenager book, you can, it's filled with illustrations. You can read that through as an adult in an hour. For teenagers, it's maybe an hour and a half, and
Mhm.
children
Mhm.
can read it also maybe in 2 hours, but that's not the point. You said something very important that really rings
Mhm.
in my heart and not only in the ears, that, okay, how can we measure if we are good enough? Or how can we see the rules? There's so many rules. The more
Mhm.
rules you have, the more confusing life is, and the more
Yes.
inadequate we
Mhm.
feel, and the more often we may feel inadequate. But when we go and say, let's establish integrity, then
Mhm.
I know I am enough. I may not be as fast a runner as you are. I may not
Mhm.
be as pretty as you are. I may not be so educated as you are, but I'm still a
Mhm.
miracle and I have integrity. And
Mhm.
integrity is the new currency. So I see it.
Yes.
And you're so valuable.
Yes.
Every one of you is valuable. And I send much love out to everyone because everyone is worthy of love.
Great message. That reminds me when I was in a leadership position, and I used to hire the maintenance, and I used to treat the maintenance just like they were one of my other staff. And I always say, hello, how you doing? How's everything going? So we had that trust. And whenever they had any issues, they will come to me and talk to me and tell me what was going on. But I always say this, like, you, even the maintenance or the janitor, you have to treat them with respect and integrity. and not
5+2.
because you have a leadership position that they're below you. I always treated them like they were just like my equal. That's why we had that
Absolutely.
always that open communication. Very important message. I'm glad that you share that. And I thank you and value and honor your time. And this has been amazing. I'm really appreciative of everything that I learned, and I thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. I
God
appreciate you.
bless.
God bless.